What's good, everybody? Back once again. What's good, everybody? Back once again. Take two, because I don't know what that was. Anyway, it's a delight to talk to everybody or the whomever's here after our first game of the NBA Finals. And I, it was an up and down type of game, you know. You know what this game really felt like? The Nuggets versus Lakers. It felt a lot like that in so many different ways, and in some ways not. And it's also one of the weird things too, where once again it sort of sucks, but I feel like it's more stuff to talk about from the Heat side than the Nugget side, and it's one of them things where we got to see how it goes because, of course, like I comparing it to the Nuggets and Lakers, and then they got swept. So, but it's way more. But it's so reminiscent of like the fact that first of all they were like pretty much they had either 10. I was like the shortest they got into I think is 8, but for the majority of the game it was really 10 to like 20 points. Like I was like, of a game, and I really thought I was like here, and I was like to me, I really feel like if you can hold, if you get always stay within 10 with the Nuggets, you have a chance to win. Once it gets up to 20, that's where things are harder. Now, I mean, in general of any game, but because with 20 with them, it's like you gotta. I was like, they're a harder team to like get stops and not also just trade baskets. You know, so like once you sort of down like 20, you made a run, but all you did was just cut the deficit to 10. Whereas so it's like, and once you sort of go back cold, then like it is it. But like with certain teams, 20 is just a different game, and the Nuggets one of them teams that's like 20. It's going to be hard to really get back in order for a chance to win. But to be honest, I was like, this to me was really a almost perfect game from Denver. I was like, you had Murray who had like 25, which he's sort of been giving you. We know he can always kill you for more, but this is what he's been giving you. But you got especially in the first half, you got your Gordon and you got your Porter Jr. to give you the points that we always know is there, possibly, but they don't seem to always execute it that way. And they both had like pretty much 14 points in the first half or whatever. Or man, I think it might have been 10 or 11, whatever. But they didn't score really in the second half. And this is sort of also what the Nuggets sort of do too, is that like and Jokic for him, even though he had like I think he had like 25, 10, and I think like 10 or so. For his own standard, I was like, it was really an okay Jokic game. To be honest, just because this, it wasn't the crazy offensive game that he shows or whatever, but he was just able to really just control the pace of the game and control the game and stuff like that. But yeah, and Bruce Brown played a lot of this game that normally he, like I was like he didn't get his transitional basket, but he hit a couple threes. And that's pretty much. And I'm like, that's not really his game. He can hit, of course, he can hit a three, and he, or whatnot. But I was like, you didn't get a KCP game, and that's pretty much really the only other people. But to me, I'm like, but had you seen that second half, Porter and Gordon, like they stopped all that stuff with Gordon that he was getting of the inside buckets, really, and Porter just got cold, and that's sort of how it is, especially with Porter always. I mean, every now and then he might take a mid ranger, but he mostly taking threes. So the thing is that is likely to happen a lot because he will like he'll give you a hot streak for a minute and then he'll go cold. So that's why it's like some of these points with the Nuggets, I'm like, that's why the Heat is you can't afford certain people like Jokic gonna get his points, Murray's gonna get his point, Gordon. Probably more so on the lower end than anything else. KCP, it depends. I was like Bruce Brown. I was like all these dudes are such factors that I'm like the Heat have a shot. Now, the reason that I think that they may have a shot while also not having a shot is sort of in the same thing, is because Bam came out and he played, and this sort of also reminiscent of the Lakers versus the Nuggets, where AD had probably his best game of the series, and it didn't really, and it's like it helped from the point attribute, but it didn't help within like necessarily the game. Now, that's a different thing if everybody else came to play, and everybody else didn't really in that game. And that's sort of what you and like it really didn't happen until late. Same thing with Miami. Nobody else really came to play, and by the time they did, it was at the end of the game where it was like you sort of exhausted all the like you could. But to me, this was really a game of, and like I said in my previous video, the 2 point I said is like I thought it was going to be more Butler than Bam, but you need both of your top players to match their top players. And the thing is, I think that like I was like now like looking more at this game and then sort of understanding the last couple games, I think Jimmy is really it's like if you think about it, I think Jimmy is sort of really playing like he's trying to get the guys going more than himself, and which I was like I feel like in this series he's going to have to get going first, then the other dudes are going to have to come into play. Like he's going to have to give you the gravitational force, which he was in a lot of cases. Like they were really making sure that Jimmy didn't get going, but he's going to have to be more so the case because I feel like he had a bunch of he could have had a bunch of assists as well. Nobody just hit their shots. But he also I thought like the first segment of the first quarter, he was coming out and he was hitting a couple jump shots, and I was like, okay, we gonna get Jimmy Butler. That's what we gonna get. And then he just sort of faded after that point. And I know he was trying to set up and he was trying to do the thing of playing the offense, but then like the thing is that with his like how he plays, he ended up taking himself out of the game because then when he tried to turn it on, he was missing open shots that he normally would hit where it was like floater, his mid-ranger. Like none of that stuff was hitting in a way that was just like, oh, he done ended up taking himself out of the game. I think for the game to how it looked, you gotta look at all the wide open threes that the Heat missed. A lot of them. And they missed a lot of paint points. A lot of paint points. And it wasn't because they were just, like getting on them on D. It was like, no, I was like, a lot of that stuff was they were just missing at the rim buckets. Because Gordon's really the only threat really there. But Jokic's a big body, but he ain't really nobody. I also, too, I was like, I'm like, why don't anybody just dunk on Jokic? I don't understand. Like I get not on Gordon because Gordon jump in the building, he's going to sort of take that a little bit out of it or whatever. But I'm like, Jokic is not getting up. He's just mainly staying in the basket. He's going to try to also make sure he don't get in foul trouble, which is another thing with the free throws. The Miami taking 2 free throws, that was a little bit of like they didn't put any pressure on them. Not that they couldn't go inside because you can't really like back down their dudes with their players. You can't really do that. But they didn't just. But and this is sort of my point. I'm like not necessarily dunking on Jokic, but going at Jokic when I'm like obviously it's a one-on-one affair. This is sort of my thing. Like there was a lot of times where they would like open, like the threes haven't been falling. I'm just like go if you just go to the basket, you're going to probably get fouled and just go to the hoop or whatever. I'm like, and they didn't really do that. Now in saying that, there's a lot of things that I was like I'm like. Okay, cool. I'm fine with a lot of things not being called foul. It's when it's being like when you see like just something like happen on the other side. That's like, well, that was a foul. Why is that not called? So a lot of stuff like with the Heat, I don't think it's a foul, but I think it's a foul based on what the Nuggets are getting, and that was a lot of things where I'm like the Nuggets to me was getting ticky tack fouls in some cases, but they didn't have a crazy huge like margin of like like the free throw discrepancy or nothing like that. It was just really they didn't really go to the basket. So I'm not even going to really whine too much of like, oh, they didn't call it this game like it's some other game or whatnot. This really just they didn't try to go to the basket. But no, I think I was like, and the thing is like this is a game that I said they needed to come and still at home, and I was like, I said they need to take one of these games. They have to, because there's no way that I think that they can be down 0-2 and then carry it over in Miami or nothing like that. So they're going to have to come to get the next game. Now, I was like, now the crazy thing is with the Nuggets is that they do take a lot of hard shots. And they have been hitting them a lot in this whole playoffs. And that's the part that I'm wondering if that's going to come down to the me. And because I'm like Bruce Brown hit a shot with like bam right up in his grill. I'm like Porter is like the only one that really he makes it. See with Porter, he makes shots difficult than the shots being difficult because he's 6'10", he can shoot over just about anybody. But he's the one that wants to fade back and shoot and stuff like that. And I was like, he making it more difficult than it needs to be. But and Jamal Murray, I was like, he probably one of the best hard shot creators and finishers. Probably, I mean, this whole playoffs in general, but especially that's left. But out of the whole playoffs, he's sort of been that where it's just hard shot makes it. I was like, difficult shot makes it. Like what the hell is this shot makes it. To where it's like after a while you applaud and you shake dude's hand, and after a while that's just who that guy is or whatnot. And but the thing is that they got stops. They just didn't hit none of their shots. Their defense was on point. Their rotation were pretty good, and their zone was really good. Of course, Jokic is one of the people that can beat it, of course. But their defense was really good in a lot of spaces that it really makes you think that if they just hit some of those shots, this is a wholly different game. And the thing is that they're going to have to figure out. I think the part they're going to have to figure out with their defense though is when to just leave Jokic be. Cause this is my thing. I'm like, you're either going to double team Jokic and then just hurry up and scramble him off the ball and just make everybody else beat you, or you're just gonna have Jokic be like a one-man show. Now I think I'd rather have Jokic and see. I'm like, cool, Jokic, he might be getting 50. You want to pound that ball and go ahead or whatever. But all these other dudes, I'm not letting them out my sight. I'm not doing that. And I felt like in some instances they tried it and it sort of worked. And then some of the instances was when it was in the zone, they were giving up layups on the basket. Now, I'd rather give up those little bitty layups underneath the basket and stuff like that than having them hit threes like crazy. Because if I'm not hitting threes like crazy, at least I can match them on twos. Or if they get twos, cool. Maybe my threes are falling that day. But I'm sort of the opinion that I'm like, I'd rather Jokic have 45, 10, and 6 than I'd rather him sort of have 25, 10, and 12. 12 assists. Because I'm like, then that means that person's going, that person that's going, that person that's going, that person that's going. Murray could get his own shot, so he's not nothing to worry about. Everybody else can get their own shot. And that's where those others are the situation. But also Miami, Caleb Martin, had a bad game. Strus had a bad game. I was like, Duncan had a bad game. I was about to say David Robinson. But he had a bad game. And then they didn't really take a crazy amount of shots, but at that point, you missing that many. Do you want to keep taking that crazy amount of shots? Even though that's your game, you know that's what you're supposed to do. But the thing is that Jimmy didn't have a good game. Bam had a pretty good game. I was like, it wasn't full on Bam, but I was like, that was a really good. It's like the AD thing where it's just like, okay, cool, I gotta tag him. And I was like, the thing is, everybody's like, Jokic, he barely he was putting up a sweat. I was like, well, that dude he was huffing and puffing. Jamal Murray was huffing and puffing, and I'm like, yeah, because I'm like they get tired too. But I'm like, but you got people that's pushing up against them. Unlike the Lakers situation, all these dudes are playing hard. All these dudes are coming at you. So it's going to be a little bit more taxing than what you probably had to do with the other way, where it's you got dudes that are like, I'm gonna pick you up to here, I'm gonna pick you up here, cool, whatever. You're gonna keep running around. It's a lot if their shots can fall, they can match Denver. They can play with Denver. They shots gotta fall, and you could probably keep getting that out of Bam. Butler's gonna have to come up and play, and if you just get one other person, because I was like, people were like, oh, it wasn't even close. I was like, nah, it kind of what it is. Sort of my thing is when you look at numbers and you look at stats and everybody gonna come out with like their analytics and stuff. And sometimes I'm like, "What you watching the game?" Cause like, look, like the thing is like when they faced the Lakers, it was a sweep. It is what it is. But in those games, you can also tell that it wasn't just like they wiped the floor, even though it was a sweep. This is sort of how this game was. Like, yes, they was up, but you could see where it's like, nah, their defense is working and their shots ain't hitting. And like I said in my last video, I was like, if their shots, they gotta have their shots falling. If their shots not falling and Jimmy's not gonna play up, then yeah, they're gonna lose. And I know it like sounds like simple, but if they would have just had, if Gabe Vincent would have hit on some of those threes, Duncan would have hit on some of those threes, Strick would have hit on some of the threes. It ended up being a 10-point game, and I was like, where the star didn't get really taken out until basically the game was over. So it's not like you could say like they took their like foot off the pedal or whatever. Like Malone was making sure they stayed out there because he didn't want he didn't want nothing crazy to happen, and it still was that close with the Heat team being garbage on offense. Now that's not me saying like, oh snap, I was like Heat in 6 or something like that. I was like, I thought they could have stole one today, and they could have stole one today. I thought their game plan was really good in a way that I'm like, I will actually stick with that. I want to know if I want to see if they play more Kevin Love. They play Zeller tonight. To me, that's the only thing I would not, is that I was like, now granted, I was like, I don't know if like Love was like hurt or not or something like that. I probably should check that out. But to me, I'm like, okay, cool. Bam's your main dude. Have Zeller and Love play like the next set of minutes. Whatever, split that up. I'm like, look, Bam going to be getting tired. He's going to be. You need some more big men. Kevin Love can't like keep up with Jokic, but his 3-point shooting means he's always a threat. He can rebound. I was like, he can do outlet passes. I was like, he's a passing big man as well. I was like, where Zeller's there, just like to me, I'm like, Zeller should have just I'd have hacked the hell out of Jokic, to be honest. I'm like, look, you here for 6 fouls. You ain't like no shot blocker or nothing. Like, you just a big body. Use your big body. And that's sort of, I think, what they need to do is that they need to use Bam, Love, and Zeller and just use that combination or whatever. It was funny seeing Jokic and then Jovic out on the floor together because I was like, that was funny. Dang, it's almost like I was like, they also got Omar Euston or whatever. I'm just saying, I'm just thinking, I'm like, at this point, I'm just throwing bodies at Jokic. I'm like, cool. I'm like, you got 6 fouls, use them on Jokic. That's all we're gonna do. Jokic, and we're gonna hold everybody else. I mean that's just sort of one of my game plans in this. I'm like, cause if you can stop, I'm like, them other dudes, to me, I'm like, those are points I'm not counting on. I'm not counting on Gordon giving me 16 again. I'm not counting on Porter getting me 16 again. I was like, I'm saying there's going to be some reduced to the means and whatnot. I was like, Bruce Brown, he always gets about 10. That's just something, I was like, me sort of just a consistent 10 dude or whatever. And I was like, you just need to bring everybody back to their little means or whatever. Jokic go have it 30. Murray has it 30. Cool. I'm like, sprinkle in 10, 15 here. I'm just saying, those two is hard to stop compared to the other 6 that are playing. But no, I was like, see how game 2 go before we start, saying it's a full out, thing that is over. And I was like, I wouldn't feel that bad with being the Heat. That's all. Cause I'm like, y'all have so many the merits in a game where I'm like, the Nuggets pretty much played a top game that they could play. But anyway, that was me just sort of doing a little bit of ranting in my recap about this game. It still was a fun game, and I was like, this might be a pretty good final. Not like ratings wise, but I think it's gonna be a good final. I feel like we're gonna do some experimenting and all this. But anyway, if you like what I had to say here, I appreciate it. Thanks. If not, hey, maybe next time, check out some other stuff maybe. But until then, peace. I'm out.